Yeah. What's up, nerds? This video is sponsored by Mountain Dew Baja Blast. It's really delicious. Okay. Take 4. I need some water. I've been talking so much. I'm wearing my Han Burgundy t-shirt. It's one of my favorites. You got Chew Baxter right there. I've had this shirt for like 4 years. Bought it for $20 online. It's awesome. Okay. Oh. Like I said, this is my 4th time recording this video. The first time, I was reading from a script that I wrote, and I didn't like how I sounded. I sounded like one of those fake YouTube news reporters, and I didn't like that. So I spent an hour re-recording, stumbling on my words, so that I could sound more natural. Something happened with my microphone, and there was this weird reverberation. My microphone wasn't on. As I was saying, I think it was recording from the webcam microphone and this microphone at the same time. So anyway, I thought I fixed that. So I recorded it a 3rd time. Nope, I didn't fix it. Now I think I fixed it. So take 4. Here we go. This is a response video of sorts, but it's not a response to any particular video. It's a response to an idea that was not explicitly expressed, but implicitly expressed in a couple of Steven Crowder's videos. Steven Crowder is a conservative political commentator / comedian, basically the conservative John Oliver. And back in March, on one of his Change My Mind segments, he made an interesting offhanded comment.
I'm gonna guess you're 2 years in college right now?
Oh, that's a good guess.
Yeah? You studying philosophy?
Actually, yeah.
Okay, there you go.
6 days later, he responded to an argument on Twitter. I think it was from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And in his opinion, her argument was lacking in substance. And this is what he had to say.
I was stunned that these were the examples she chose. It's like a first semester philosophy college student would pick these, and they are some of the most easily debunked.
So from these examples, it's clear that Steven Crowder has sort of a negative view on philosophy as a discipline. And seeing as how that's what I studied in college, that's what my degree is in, I took it personally. So whether you agree with Steven Crowder politically or not is entirely irrelevant to this video. That's not what I'm focusing on. There's one thing that's clear in my mind, and that is Steven Crowder is wrong about philosophy. And to be fair, it's not just him. In the 2016 GOP primary elections, Marco Rubio expressed similar disdain for philosophy.
Welders make more money than philosophers. We need more welders and less philosophers.
And even Bill Nye is on record of denying the usefulness of the discipline. However, both of those people have since sort of retracted their statements and have admitted that perhaps there's more to philosophy than they initially thought. And also, philosophy has been sort of the butt of a lot of jokes in comedy television.
Scott, things aren't as happy as they used to be down here at the unemployment office. Joblessness is no longer just for philosophy majors. Useful people are starting to feel the pinch.
So, tell me about school.
Oh, well, I've decided to major in philosophy.
That's good, because they just opened up that big philosophy factory in Green Bay.
So the idea that philosophy is just kind of useless or silly to study is a popular idea in our culture, I think. And something I want to do is explore and examine the philosophy found in today's culture. So video games and movies and TV. And so I wanted this to sort of be my first video of that kind, because what I'll talk about is philosophy as a whole, how it's useful, and how ultimately people like Steven Crowder are wrong to dismiss it. A lot of what I'll be talking about can be found in this book, More Than the Love of Wisdom, An Introduction to the Whole of Philosophy. It was written by David Jensen. He was one of my professors in college. And if any of you are interested in studying philosophy, I highly recommend the book. It's a great introduction to the discipline as a whole and what you can expect from studying philosophy. So what is philosophy? A common answer you might hear is the love of wisdom. And that answer isn't very good, mainly because the ontology of a word doesn't necessarily reflect the word's meaning. For example, consider the word pedophile. The ontology of the word suggests that pedophile means lover of children. But you would never say, man, I just want someone who loves kids to babysit my kids, so therefore I'm going to find a pedophile to babysit my children. That's ridiculous. And you wouldn't go up to someone named Philip and say, oh, you must love horses. It's just not a good answer to the question, what is philosophy? While it's true that many philosophers have different views on what philosophy actually is, it's clear that there's some underlying factor that unites all philosophers. According to Dr. Jensen, philosophers are focused on the most fundamental and general concepts, principles, and features of the world, including our relationship to the world and to one another. So, for example, where the scientist, specifically the climatologist, would ask the question, do CO2 emissions cause global warming? The philosopher will ask the questions, what is causation? What does it mean for event A to cause event B? And how do we even know event A causes event B? There's really 4 main branches of philosophy with a bunch of sub-branches that intermingle with one another. The 4 main branches are epistemology, metaphysics, ethics, and logic. Epistemology is the study of knowledge, so it asks questions like, what is knowledge? What justifies our beliefs? At what point can we consider our beliefs to be knowledge? And are there limits on knowledge, and how do we know those limits? Metaphysics is the study of reality and existence. It deals with concepts of necessity, causation, identity, and the existence of abstract objects and ideas. Ethics is, of course, the study of morality, the study of right and wrong. What makes an action morally good or morally bad? Why is it important, or why should we strive to live good lives? And logic is the study of inference, or as Immanuel Kant liked to think of it, the rules for thinking. Logic focuses heavily on validity and constructing and analyzing arguments. Like I said, in addition to these main topics, there's also subtopics of philosophy, including philosophy of language, which admittedly was probably my favorite course that I took in college. Philosophy of action and agency, which is what I'm particularly interested in as a philosopher. Philosophy of mind, philosophy of religion, philosophy of science, and many more. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, man, based on that description, philosophy sounds so cool. How could anyone think it's useless or dumb? Well, there are actually several popular criticisms of philosophy. One is that it doesn't progress, and that objection is objectively false. Basically, any discipline you'll study in college first started out as a branch of philosophy. The more we study a topic or discipline, the better we understand that topic or discipline, and the more appropriately we can systematize how to think about it. So as philosophy progresses, it becomes new disciplines and new sciences. This is what happened with anatomy, astronomy, physics. This is why Isaac Newton's famous work, Mathematical Principles of Natural Philosophy, is titled the way that it is, because at the time that he wrote it, physics hadn't yet branched off into its own discipline. It was still a part of philosophy. Some of the more recent disciplines to emerge from philosophy include economics and psychology, and philosophy of mind in connection to neuroscience is on the verge of becoming its own discipline as we speak. Another popular criticism of philosophy is that there are no answers to philosophical questions, that all philosophers do are just sit around and ask these paradoxical questions that aren't important and have no bearing on reality. Again, this is not entirely true. There are certainly questions that we don't have answers for, and there certainly are questions that we'll never have answers for, but that doesn't mean that philosophers aren't concerned with finding answers. Many philosophers have found answers to their questions, and like I said before, as we find more answers and as we better understand how to systematize different topics, philosophy becomes new disciplines and new sciences. In addition, just because philosophers haven't reached a consensus to a specific answer to any given question, that doesn't mean that the answers provided aren't worthwhile. That doesn't mean there aren't good reasons to accept certain answers. I guess what I'm trying to say is that philosophers have good reasons to accept their conclusions that they come up with. One final criticism that I'll bring up is that it's not useful. And this seems to be the idea that Steven Crowder has, and that I guess most people have when they criticize philosophy, is that it's not useful in any way. I wholeheartedly disagree with this for several reasons. It's true that most people with a philosophy degree either continue studying philosophy and then teach it at a university and publish their own work on philosophy, or they go to law school, as the skills you learn and develop while studying philosophy are heavily applicable in the legal field. And so, yeah, as far as careers go, philosophy is very general, and so you don't get a whole lot of specific training. However, there are countless ways to use philosophy in your everyday life, and I would argue that being able to do philosophy is one of the most important skills that anyone can develop. First, being able to read, understand, critically analyze texts and speech is, of course, a valuable skill. No matter what field of work you're in, everyone will be better off with this talent. Second, being able to construct your own thoughts and opinions and arguments in a valid way will not only help you better understand what your beliefs and values are, but it will help you better articulate those values and beliefs and more effectively convey your message. And finally, being able to fully understand someone else's viewpoint. Being able to know and understand and recognize the strongest possible viewpoint that's contrary to yours will do one of two things. One, it will either change your mind about a faulty belief that you have, or two, it will give you reasons to strengthen your own opinion. And in either case, if you've done this process honestly, you will have more empathy for the opposing viewpoint, and you'll be better off as a person as a whole. And so to recap, philosophy is an intellectual discipline focused on the most basic and fundamental concepts of the world and our relationship to it and to one another. It's very useful to understand topics of knowledge, existence, identity, logic, morality, and even to more fully understand yourself and those you disagree with. So in the very unlikely case that Steven Crowder watches this video, I hope I was able to change his mind. But one more thing I hope he understands is the grand irony of this situation. Looking back at what I said earlier about logic, we know that in order to construct and convey an argument, we need to know the rules for logic. We need to know the rules of inference. So anyone making an argument is using logic, and thus by extension is doing philosophy. Therefore, in order to make the claim that people who study philosophy are wasting their time, philosophy itself is needed. You need philosophy in order to appropriately argue that you don't need philosophy. So yeah, I think I've made my point. Mic drop. There are some philosophers who even argue that because our ability to think and reason is what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom, the whole purpose of human existence, and thus the way to achieve ultimate happiness, is through philosophy. By using that ability to think and reason, by doing philosophy, we are fulfilling our function, we are fulfilling our purpose. But I'll probably talk about that another time on another video. So yeah, philosophy is pretty cool, What do you guys think? Is philosophy useless, or are there benefits to studying it as a discipline? Let me know in the comments, and remember, no matter what answer you give, no matter what you say, no matter what answers you give, you're using philosophy.